Welcome back, beautiful people. Okay, so for week 3 with Llama Llama, Sand and Sun, we said we already did some science, we did some technology, we did some arts, we did some maths. So what's left? It's engineering time. So now we're going to do letter E today for our STEAM. We are going to do some engineering activities that will tie in to the imagery and the overall beach feeling that our children saw when we did our literacy, our story, Llama Llama, Sand and Sun. If you're new to STEAM or if you're new to the early years, thinking about how you can do an engineering activity might feel really overwhelming, but it's not. We can break it down so that they're engaging but simple activities that have lots of benefits for our children. So engineering tasks really help develop problem solving, asking questions, critical thinking, and I really like to do it in ways that also will develop our social skills, especially in the early years. That's something that is so critical that we build together. So doing an engineering challenge like the one that we're going to do today, we can do it, with a pair of children, with a group of children, and it'll really help them to work together. Engineering activities provide lots of opportunities for our children to grow and to mature, and the engineering design challenges, they promote social and emotional development, and that kind of emotional development we talked a little bit about when we did our sensory models, but it will also come when we do challenges like this together. As child engineers, we help to build empathy. They're working alongside each other. So they have to work with their peers to solve a problem. So engineering tasks, I love to give them to my kids. I'll introduce it during story time, not during story time. I'll introduce it during maybe our circle time, and then it's something that they can do together in small group time or in their free time. So for children who are older, and we talk about STEAM, so maybe children who are 7, 8, 9, we hear a lot of terms like spatial reasoning, physical science, and that doesn't mean that just because our children are younger years that these advanced terms don't apply to them. It definitely does. So spatial reasoning is something that we can talk about when our children are developing their gross motor skills. We've talked before about fine motor skills like our fingers and pre-writing skills. An engineering challenge like we have today, when the children maybe are standing, moving side to side, trying to see different angles of things, that's spatial reasoning. When they're moving their arms, when they're trying to stack something, how can I put mine here if you're going to put yours here, because they're working together, that's also spatial reasoning. So those same more advanced terms also apply to the younger years. And if you're able to, depending on what you have in your home or in your classroom, depending on if you're a parent or caretaker doing this, or if you're a teacher doing this, we could also work in some technology. So we could use some things to document our challenge, because I'm going to explain a few different ways that we could do our challenge. But if we're doing it in like the shorter term way, having some technology, whether that's classroom iPad, maybe you have an actual camera that you use to document things on, using these kinds of technologies to document what the children have done can bring in that element of technology with the children. I often find myself surprised at how well children, even children who are 3 and 4 that I've taught, how well they know how to work iPhones, iPads, all of that. So it can be a task that you give to the children. After you make this, come and ask Miss Morgan for the classroom iPad, and then you can help me to take a picture of the tower that you've made. So I've said towers a few times already. I've given it away. We are going to do some beach ball towers today. So in Llama Llama, Sand and Sun, the imagery that we can see in the pages, we've definitely already talked about beach balls with our children. things that we can bring to the beach with us. Maybe you have some in your classroom. I'm sure that they've played with them at home. So these are going to be words and vocabulary that the children are familiar with. If you want to add an extra little challenge to this already engineering challenge, if you want to make it a little bit more difficult, you could actually, if you kept some of your sand from our sand painting, you could add a layer of sand before you start your toilet tissue roll stacking, and that'll make it a little bit uneven. Again, it gives that tactile element. It'll make it a little bit more tricky. Or maybe that could be a secondary, a more advanced way. So first you do it with just the flat surface and your toilet tissue rolls to do your stacking, and then once the children have tried that a few times, we can increase the level of how they have to think about everything, and we could add some sound as well, which ties back into our Llama Llama book. So before we build, I'll just share with you some different ways that we could do this activity. Like I said before, there's really two different ways that we could go about this. So in the first way, we could do it more as an installation, and we don't take it down as once the children finish it and document it. So this will work better if you have, maybe you can carve out some space in your classroom for it. Maybe you have some shared space in your school. And this can be more of like almost kind of look like an art installation, but of the children's engineering challenges. And it will show the different ways that the children went about their creative process in their engineering task. So we could also tie a little bit of art in there if you wanted as well. So if you're going to go this route, I would suggest using some tape to go around your tubes. Obviously with people walking past, children being curious, I know that the children that made the installation would be so heartbroken if they came outside and they saw that the thing had fallen down because someone was just really interested in what they had made. So I would definitely recommend using some tape around your toilet tissues if that's the route you are going to go down. You will also need much more toilet tissue rolls, because instead of all of your children in the class, when they try it using the same 20 toilet tissue rolls, you might need 10 to 20 or however many you want to use per group or per child if you're not doing this as a collaborative activity. So those are just two things to be aware of. You could also, if you're going this installation route and you're keeping it in your classroom, so more where you can keep an eye on everything day to day, or even just throughout the same day, depending on how long they stay up. If you don't want to do the tape and you can keep it in your classroom, I've turned it into a little bit of a contest. And then we also have to work on our math skills to see how long our installations have stayed up. So two different ways you can go about the first way. So the second way that we can do this activity is more of a day by day. So maybe you have a new challenge every day. Who can build the tallest? Who can use the least amount of toilet tissue rolls? Who can use the most amount of toilet tissue rolls? And this is where we can encourage some reading. We can have some cards. So if our children are able to recognize words and read words, you could have the written word, or we could have pictures that will indicate. We could have both, because I'm sure you have children who are at all different levels in your classroom. So maybe having a little bit of both is a good idea. But this also helps keeps the activity fresh and exciting for the children. You're not going to have to be constantly changing your classroom around, trying to get different ideas. This can be something that you can set up. You can tell the children how they can do it, and then you can keep it for a few weeks because they're always having new different things that they are doing with the material. If you're a caretaker and you're doing this at home, or even if you're a teacher and you have just more time to devote to this activity, you could ask your children to help come up with some of the challenge ideas, the little challenge cards. So when I worked at a Reggio Emilia inspired school, this was definitely something where I would be allowed that time to do with my children, especially because it ties the literacy back into what we're doing for STEAM. But I know I've worked at some schools, and I have some colleagues now who have like tighter curriculums. It's a little bit stricter. So you might not have a longer time to allow your children to develop their own cards. But if you have the time, it would be a way that you can develop their reading and their writing skills, and you can connect the STEAM and the literacy together. All right, now let's look at our materials. This, again, like I'm trying to do because I know we talked about having tight budgets, whether you're a teacher or whether you're a caretaker. So this one is super easy because we can ask if you're at a school, maybe you can ask your aunties or janitors if they can, collect some toilet tissue rolls. If you're at home, we can try and, collect them at home. So this isn't something we need to go out and buy. It's just something that we need to reuse of something that we're using already. So ACEs, we just need to try and remember to get some toilet tissue rolls. And then the only other thing we need, other than a bunch of toilet tissue rolls, is a beach ball. The size, what you want it to look like, all of that is up to you. Mine have Sunoco Garashi characters because I just think they're adorable. But this is all that we need to build our tower. Some of our towers were successful, some not so much. But remember, that's also a key part to learning in the early years. Not everything has to work, not everything has to be perfect. I actually really like when we try and experiment and it doesn't go perfectly or it doesn't go as we planned, because it gives the children a safe space for them to process their feelings, and it provides an opportunity to problem solve and to explore possible solutions instead of just thinking every time we try something new, it's going to instantly work, because as adults, we know that definitely does not always pan out. Time for our STEAM recap. What did we do with this activity? So we used our classroom iPad or our iPhone or camera to document the process. So we used our technology. We practiced engineering methods while exploring how to build our tower. If you made charts or collected data using the principles that we talked about previously, how long they stayed up, how many tubes each team used, then you also participated with some maths in this activity. And we also talked about using the literacy elements and the challenge cards. We had socio-emotional development, we had teamwork and problem solving. All right, 2 more weeks in August. So that means we have 2 more weeks of Llama Llama Sand and Sun activities. Next week, we're going to go back into something a little bit more sciencey based. We will need something that comes from the beach, not sand this time because we've already used sand, but maybe something that is kind of like sand before sand. So we will need some beachy elements again to tie us back into our story. And then we'll have one more arts-based Llama Llama Sand and Sun activity, and that will be it for August. So you can give me a thumbs up if there were some good ideas, if anything in this video helped you. And if you want to see what we have coming in the future, we can subscribe so you can see what comes next. You can take a look at the August playlist if you haven't seen our ocean sensory bottles or the sand painting that we did. And that's it for today. So I'll see you next time with some more steam for Llama Llama Sand and Sun. Bye.